So I think, so there are the three targets, for this week, and the first one, key details, after reading it, I think I would describe it as like identifying evidence or information that supports certain like conclusions or inferences. Like there's a lot in there about the conclusions and inferences,
yep.
and then how the details support that in like a text-dependent way.
Yeah.
So
I would agree, yeah. So write it down. I think the text-dependent part is really huge. And the drawing conclusions. I think what was interesting about in the claim, it always says too, when they, not always, but one of the things that they call out is often the conclusion is given, and then kids find the text-dependent evidence, because it is a text-dependent question.
So we can make sure the question stems in the lesson plans.
Yes.
Like, capture that.
Yep, that's a good point.
Cool.
And then we can capture there.
And then so the next one was central idea, which I can totally see why it's paired with key details, because it actually also calls out the use of evidence. But it's like first identify like the main idea or the moral or the theme, and then identify the details that go along with that. So
the part A, part B is all going along with it. So the central idea using the key details. Which is a transition that we've started to make from the beginning of the year, where we were finding just like theme and moral without it now. But this will be great additional practice for them to solidify their thinking about how to support their answer.
Totally. And then word meanings, which I know is like coming through every single week, just like quick questions. And that is basically like context clues, like multiple meaning words, having to basically like all the word attack strategies in the context of the text, and identifying also like how why the author might be choosing certain words, or like the impact of the words in the text.
What will be interesting too when we look through this assessment, seeing how many sentences does the author or does the assessment provide from which students have to actually draw their clues from. Is it one line surrounding it, or is it multiple lines? And if figuring out what that looks like in third grade.
Yeah.
Great. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Perfect. Okay. So we're going to jump into just like our assessment cover page, the question, and then look at the distractors. And I want us to get really specific about if our students get this right, what do they understand, and if they don't, if they pick the first distractor, what they don't, and then we'll write our key points for it.
Great. So first question, and in the sentence that best supports the inference that Coyote uses his imagination. And so when I went through this and like took this myself, I thought I saw a couple distractors. I think the first one is around, it's that like second to last sentence. Coyote thought about this all summer, because I think, and this is text specific, I need to zoom back out, but I guess to talk through my thinking process, like if you're thinking about something a lot, then, and when you use your imagination, you also think a lot. So I guess you could infer that if you thought about it, that he was also using his imagination around it. And then the other distractor, and then I'll try to zoom out, would be that first sentence, where it talks about, I think, two reasons this is a distractor. First, he wore a smile as wide as the sky, for he knew what he had to do to have a taste. I think like knowing what he has to do suggests that he's maybe using his imagination in order to know what he has to do. And then I think sometimes like the figurative language trips kids up, like he wore a smile as wide, like is he imagining that his smile is as wide as the sky? Just
the type of language within the sentence.
The use of the simile like feels imaginative just
to
in its
him.
like connotation.
Yep. So let's go after your first one. So under distractor 1, let's go with Coyote thought about this all summer. Okay. So if kids were to pick this, you got to this already. What do they understand? And let's go back to the claims.
Yes. Yes. So I actually think multiple targets come into play here, because the first one I would say is like key details, because you're trying to identify the detail that supports a certain argument here, which makes me think about our like best evidence key points.
Yep.
So the argument is that he uses his imagination, and if they pick Coyote thought about this all summer, then they understand that evidence should be like on the same topic as an argument, because thinking and imagination are related.
Yep. So let's write that down. That's great, because I think yes. So they understand that evidence is related to the same.
Like good evidence is related to the argument. Starting to support. And so yeah, I think if we're going through those key points and ask kids like, does Coyote thinking about this all summer have to do with him using his imagination? The answer would be yes.
Yep.
And then I would say what they don't understand is that next key point, which is does that piece of evidence explicitly tell you, or like that idea of like how much inferring do we have to do to make the connection between the argument and the evidence? And the actual answer here is more explicit because it's an example of how to use your imagination, whereas here you have to infer, oh, he's thinking, he must
So the best, yes, so the best evidence.
They don't understand that the best evidence doesn't require you to add an inference.
Is often more explicit.
Yeah. Students pick this, they don't understand the best evidence.
I guess less stretching of the... By
the more explicit the evidence, the better it is.
Yeah, and the more explicit means the less
they have to infer.
The less they have to infer, exactly. So let's turn that into then key points.
So I think as far as the how, I mean, it's reiterating this key point around the best evidence is more explicit, but I guess, like, I only taught that a handful of times, so I do think repetition here is relevant. So to make that sticky, like,
well, you said it originally, so they have to understand.
Oh, like the actual sequence?
Yeah, what is that, like, what's the actual...
Yeah.
Because I think it wouldn't hurt to go back to that. I do think the point of entry of confusion that you identified is which one do you have to infer, but I would maybe go in on that.
Yeah.
But if they are picking the distractor, they do understand the argument.
So what is the argument? Is the evidence related to the argument? Is the evidence explicit?
And by explicit, we mean
the reader doesn't have to infer as much. And I'm going to bold this because that's like the one to really go after here. And then I guess the what key points, argument, what you're trying to prove.